we'll start with this. Well, the news just broke that Katie Taylor's road to the undisputed lightweight championship has taken a step in the right direction, and she's going to be squaring off against the WBO champion, Ruiz Volante, on St. Patrick's Day, and more details about the card itself have yet to be revealed. The fight's scheduled to be going down on St. Patrick's Day, March 17th. That's a Sunday. And with the luck of the Irish, they might actually get a pretty decent-sized turnout because Katie Taylor's celebrity is well known amongst the Irish fans. She's a national icon, a national treasure, a national hero. And with the fight happening on that particular day
in Philadelphia,
it's conceivable that they're going for a really big Irish turnout for this fight. Now, for those of you that are newer to the channel that may not be aware of who Ruiz Volante is, it being that the boxing media doesn't cover all the female fighters in such high abundance as they do the male fighters. For those of you that aren't familiar with Ruiz Volante, you know, I'm sure some of the older subscribers, they've seen my videos regarding Ruiz Volante as a fighter and this fight in particular, and how this fight will be different from what we've seen so far. It'll be different from what we saw in the Eva Wallstrom fight, and it'll be different from what we saw in the Cindy Serrano fight. This is not a showcase fight. This is not a keep busy fight. This is not a tune-up fight. This is no walk in the park. In Ruiz Volante, the undefeated WBO champion, what you have is a power puncher that believes in her power, and she's got some in-and-out abilities of her own. I will say that they're not as polished as Katie Taylor, and she's not as highly touted an amateur as Katie Taylor was in her amateur days, but all things considered, she is still a considerable threat. I imagine that the aesthetic of this fight and the characteristics are going to look a lot like the Jessica McCaskill fight, except Rose is a bit more put together than Jessica, with just that same kind of power, but not as rough around the edges. The right hand of Ruiz Volante is fast becoming a very bankable punch. That's a part of what makes her a considerable threat, that she's got some agility of her own, she's got some movement of her own, but what makes her a considerable threat is these things combined with her power. This girl packs a punch. It's conceivable that throughout the course of the fight, she's going to be looking to land that same right hand, the right hand that dropped Borbua. Put her right on her fucking ass. She's going to be looking to land that right hand, and this is what makes it a risk. When you got a fighter that is as blessed with speed as Katie Taylor, that throws combinations like Katie Taylor, they've got agility, they've got speed, they've got reflexes, and good defensibility. Sometimes those kinds of fighters, they get a little bit too comfortable. They start stringing one too many punches together, and they end up paying for it. Fighters that are in love with their own speed. A good example of this is Amir Khan, a guy who gets off great combinations, and he's got hand speed out of this world, hand speed for days. But the problem is hand speed alone, you know, it's getting you in trouble. You're in love with it. You're stringing one too many punches together. And that's what the risk is here. Katie Taylor has got to be mindful of Ruiz Volante's power in this fight to not put together too many punches. She's really got to focus on hit and not get hit. Don't try to overwhelm this girl with volume, because if you do, you're going to be opening up and you're going to be right in front of her. You're going to be in line for that right hand. And Katie Taylor is still
in the early stage
learning on the job. You got to realize that for as accomplished as she is, Katie don't got a lot of fights. You understand? She's not at you know, 15-0 or 20-0. She ain't got a lot of fights. So she could get hit with a shot that makes her feel some kind of way if she's not careful. That's the biggest risk in a Ruiz Volante fight, that it's not like the Cindy Serrano fight where she's just going to shell up and try to survive. It's not going to be like that. It's not going to be like Eva Wallstrom where, okay, the girl's a very good boxer, she's got a good amateur background, but she's not the strongest puncher. So even if she does get off a few shots, you can take them. This is different. You're fighting with a legitimate knockout puncher, and it's for that reason that Katie Taylor's got to be careful in this fight. I'll tell you, I feel the aesthetic is going to be a lot like the McCaskill fight, where we're going to see Katie playing the defensive at times, being judicious, having to work around an advancing target that's looking for a knockout. Now that's very different from what we saw in the Eva Wallstrom and Cindy Serrano fights. And that's very different from what we saw in the Victoria Bustos fight. Essentially, this opponent is a bigger puncher. This is arguably the biggest puncher that Katie Taylor will have faced as a professional. There are risks involved here. Make no mistake.
She's got to be careful.
So for this reason, I think this fight is going to be a really good fight, because we're going to get to see the best of Katie Taylor put in action. She's going to have to. She's going to have to pull certain tools out of the tool bag that she doesn't normally have to pull out. The kind of tools we saw in the McCaskill fight. That she can fight going forward, she can fight going backwards, she can fight moving sideways, she can get under and around shots, and believe me, I think she's going to have to. Rose Volante is a live one, so I'm very much looking forward to this fight. This fight will move Katie Taylor further along on the Ring IQ pound-for-pound list, provided that she is victorious. And we know what the rules are. If by some off chance Katie loses this thing, she's off the list, and Rose will be integrated into the list. That's the way the cookie crumbles. There are 3 world titles on the line here, making the victor of this fight 1 title away from becoming the undisputed lightweight champion. Make no mistake, there's a lot on the line here, okay? So keep your eyes peeled for this in March on St. Patrick's Day. Katie Taylor attempts to unify another title with what is a very dangerous puncher. And in other news,
Pay attention, kids.
heavyweight contender Andy Ruiz made the announcement earlier today that he has joined the PBC family. He's going to be fighting under the PBC banner. He made the announcement earlier today via his Instagram, and these are just my thoughts on that move. The heavyweight scene itself is booming. Regardless of the 2 or 3 more talked about guys in the division, the scene itself is booming. The division itself is booming. That's saying that the good fights aren't limited to being world title fights, because there are any variety of top contenders out there that you can mix and match together regardless of their promotional banners, but you can mix them and match them together and get one hell of a fight. You know, on the matchroom side, you got Anthony Joshua, obviously, who's the biggest draw in the division, but you also have Dillian White. You also have Jarrell Miller. Those are interesting fights in and of themselves. But on the PBC side, you also have Charles Martin, Gerald Washington, and more interesting, or at least more relevant to Andy Ruiz joining that banner, they have Adam Kaugnacki. And trust me when I tell you that a fight between Andy Ruiz and Adam Kaugnacki has Fight of the Year written all over it. And that's a fight that wouldn't even involve a world title. Neither one of them are champions, but I'll tell you something about both of those fighters. They're both portly fellows. They're both deceptively skilled. These are the guys that come to mind when you hear the proverb, the saying, don't judge a book by its cover. You know, Adam Kaugnacki, they call him Babyface because, well, he's got a baby face and he's a portly fellow. Just as well, Andy Ruiz has a very unassuming, innocuous kind of air about him, but if you've seen him in action, you know this is a quality heavyweight with deceptive hand speed and very good counters, respectable power. Some people feel even that his only loss, which came at the hands of Joseph Parker while contending for what was the vacant WBO title, some people feel that Andy was robbed, that Andy really won that fight, that Andy had done enough, and that's the only loss on his record. Andy Ruiz is still in the running, he's still in the mix, and I'll tell you, I'm not a fan of the PBC. Anybody that follows this channel knows that. There are some fighters there that I like very much, I have an opinion of, 1 or 2. But at the end of the day, this is an unbiased channel, and we like to call things down the middle here. We like to be objective, and I'll tell you this much. The possibility of an Adam Kaugnacki fight makes me like this move. That fight is more likely if Andy's on that side of the street. It doesn't guarantee it, because there have been several guys that have been on the same side of the street over there that haven't even fought yet, for years. But the fight wouldn't be a possibility at all if Andy was still with Top Rank, because we know PBC don't want to work with Top Rank. The fight wouldn't be a possibility at all if Andy would have went with Matchroom and DAZN. It simply wouldn't.
They don't like them either.
Because the PBC don't want to work with them either. But with Andy and Adam being on the same side of the street, that fight actually has a possibility of being made. Maybe not right away, but somewhere down the line. There are ample guys there to keep Andy Ruiz in the mix. You know, he's won 2 fights since that, controversial loss, or mildly, I'll say mildly controversial, because that wasn't a high-profile fight here. But he has had 2 fights since that time, scoring 1 knockout and winning 1 decision. So he's been keeping busy, you know. He's not coming off a stint of inactivity. He's not coming right off the couch. But with him joining the PBC and the guys that they already have over there, there are ample guys over there to keep him busy with and build him up into something. I'm not completely sure they'll have him fight Deontay Wilder for his title. You know, nothing like that, not just yet, because Deontay Wilder's in the mix of a lot of conversations right now. But in the in-between time, they can shell out one hell of a fight, one fucking mother of a fight between him and Adam Kaugnacki. If Adam Kaugnacki makes it past Gerald Washington in his upcoming fight, I would very much like to see him matched against Andy Ruiz, because between Adam's work rate and Andy's hand speed and quick counters, I'm telling you that could be a Fight of the Year candidate. So my thoughts on the move is Andy could have landed anywhere and been in a good situation, because the division itself is doing well for itself. He doesn't have to be on any particular side of the street to be in the mix of things, because every side of the street's got something going on. The division is booming. So, it's not a terrible move, and at minimum, the possibilities that the move yields are okay with me. I say it all the time, I'm not a big fan of the PBC, and I definitely don't like a lot of their business practices. But at minimum, I'll say that I could see them making that fight. I could see that. Because Andy's not a big name yet, and neither is Adam Kalgnacki. So they'd probably feed one to the other to create the buzz for that fighter, to create and further build that fighter's fan base. One way to do it, have those guys fight each other. And I think it'd be a great fight. So, all things considered, I think it was a good move for Andy. Andy is a quality fighter that flies very low below the radar, you understand? Like, this is not a guy that gets talked about much, and in my opinion, enough. He's a very good fighter. He has a very unassuming physique and a very unassuming demeanor. But, because, Adam, Andy, these guys aren't Adonises, they're not going to win the Arnold Classic. But I'll tell you what, muscles don't win fights. There are a couple of guys out there that got him, a couple of guys that don't, but that's no measure for their ability to win a fight. Andy Ruiz is a quality fighter, and I think the people that follow the PBC more closely than others, they're going to become aware of that as he fights on their cards. So, it's about as good a move as he could have made. No complaints from me. I just hope that he doesn't end up on the shelf like some of their fighters have. I just hope that they put his talents to good use, because, the PBC does tend to shelve their guys quite a bit. I mean, look at Gary Russell. He's been fighting once a year for 4 years. Leo Santa Cruz only fought once last year. Gervonta Davis only fought once last year. I hope that's not the situation for Andy. I hope they keep him busy. I hope they keep him in situations. That's my only worry with the move. But, like I said, the scene is booming, and there's enough work to go around. So, my best wishes go out to Andy Ruiz. Hope to see more of him. And finally, in other news, it appears all the rumors, all the reports, all systems are a-go for Terrence Crawford to defend his WBO welterweight title against Amir King Khan. The press conference for this fight will be going down on the 15th of this month in London. The Bob Father, Bob Arum, is going to be in attendance. And there's some very interesting particulars in regards to just how everything broke down, because apparently Amir Khan was offered more money for the Kell Brook fight, but as we talked about before in previous videos, the weight stipulations were an issue, yada, yada, yada. But I'll tell you the truth, that the reason I felt confident that this fight was going to come off is because Amir Khan was actually entertaining other possibilities, other options. So when I saw that the Terrence Crawford fight became a talking point, I thought to myself that, yeah, that fight can get made. That fight will come off. Or at least at minimum,
It's highly probable.
there's a strong possibility, because just the fact that Amir Khan is entertaining the offer, that he didn't immediately shoot it down, it gave me the impression that this is something Amir Khan might do, because Amir Khan, I hate to say it, I don't want to call it a duck, because he is facing a high-level opponent in Terrence Crawford. He graces number one on some people's pound-for-pound list. On the Ring IQ pound-for-pound list, he's definitely number one. It's not necessarily a duck, because Khan is fighting a high-level guy, but Amir Khan does give off the impression that he'd rather do anything than fight Kell Brook. He just doesn't want to give him the satisfaction. And when I saw that he was entertaining this offer, that he said he accepted it, the fight itself seemed like a possibility that, yeah, this thing might actually come off. So here we are. But along with all the other particulars, apparently Amir Khan still owes Eddie Hearn. He still owes Matchroom one fight. And that fight would presumably be a Kell Brook fight. The thing is, depending on how this fight goes for him, how soon can people expect that? I mean, if Terrence Crawford starches Khan, which is conceivable, let's put it that way. If Terrence starches him, he's going to go from being starched by Terrence to being starched possibly by Brook. He's going to be a little bit worse for wear if he walks right into a Brook fight after that. I don't know, that's too far away to even tell. What is that situation really going to amount to? We'll just have to wait and see. And just the fact that this is a pay-per-view is an indicator of what I'm always telling you guys, that the market is that much more competitive now. This is Top Rank's effort to compete with what PBC's got going on, because remember, PBC still has 2 scheduled pay-per-views coming up. One of those pay-per-views has the potential to be a success. I have no doubts about that. That's the Pacquiao versus Broner pay-per-view. Manny Pacquiao is already a proven pay-per-view draw, a proven attraction. So if any one of those 2 pay-per-views they've got scheduled is going to be a success, I'd wager that it would be that one. The Errol Spence Terrence and Mikey Garcia, that's hit or miss. We don't know what that's going to do. But what I'm seeing overall, what I'm seeing here is that this is Top Rank's response to that, okay, you guys want to stage a pay-per-view between Errol and Mikey, well, we'll stage a pay-per-view with Terrence and Khan. Amir Khan is a guy who's been on the big stage many times against many big-name opponents. He's had his share of ups, he's had his share of downs. But he is someone that people are familiar with. So the question now becomes just how many buys can a fight like this get? How many buys do you guys expect it to get? You know, I'll be honest that I think the buy rate will be kind of humble. I do think the fight will break even. At minimum, I think that. I don't think anybody's going to lose any money on this event. But I'd put the buy rate at somewhere between 350 to 400,000. Which is a good number. It's a good number. It's a hell of a lot better than what Crawford did with Postol.
Mere 50,000.
That was an evil, but it was a necessary evil. Nevertheless, you know, that fight did what, 50,000 buys? I think this fight has the potential, now that Crawford's garnered himself a lot of attention, I think this fight has the potential to do maybe 350 to 400,000 buys. Remember, Crawford's got the most watched fight of 2018, so he definitely has a buzz going. But that's where I'd put the buy rate. You know, it'll be a modest buy rate. I don't see this thing doing 500,000, but 350 to 400,000, that's still a decent number. That's still a good number. They need to decorate the undercard on this thing, though. I'll say that much. They need to have some good fights on the undercard to really give people an incentive to want to buy the event as opposed to streaming it and, you know, dealing with choppy graphics, yada, 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 whatever. But I think it will be a success. I think it will be. And time will tell if I was right or wrong.